Muy buenas tardes nuevamente. Estamos retomando esta segunda parte o esta segunda sesión más bien de preguntas y respuestas. No tenemos más preguntas ahorita en las tarjetas, entonces no sé si alguno de ustedes quiere hacer una pregunta y la podemos traducir. José María tiene el micrófono. Okay.
Creo que un tema que nos ha causado muchos problemas en las auditorías es la parte de salidas no conformes, o sea, la parte de la diferencia o la relación que hay entre salidas no conformes y servicio no conforme. ¿Nos podrías explicar, ayudar, orientarnos?
So they said that one issue that has they face a lot of they have facing a lot of problems in the past is with the difference between non-conformity outputs and non-conformity itself. And if you can provide some examples about.
I would need some context. Can she give me some context?
Okay, pues sí puedes dar un poco de contexto.
Sí, o sea, por ejemplo, salidas no conformes entre procesos y lo que sería un servicio no conforme, que sería del servicio. O sea, a veces no nos queda clara esa diferencia, o sea, que no es lo mismo, a menos que yo esté mal, ¿verdad?
So she said that they have facing some issues regarding with a non-conformity service.
Yeah.
And with a non-conformity output of a process, so
Okay.
that sometimes it's not so clear the difference between them.
And this goes back to the issue we were discussing earlier about services and planning and the design of processes, because with a service there is not necessarily the same clear separation that you have with a physical product. The fact that you have a non-conformity, it doesn't matter whether it is a non-conformity from the process or a non-conformity with your quality system. You still have to treat the non-conformity, and the way you treat the non-conformity will be according to your procedure for dealing with non-conformities. You come back to risk. What is the risk of the service having a non-conformity? Is it a big issue that needs urgent attention, urgent resources? Or is it a small thing that maybe a piece of paperwork is not entirely correct and needs to be a simple correction? That I think is the best answer I can give you at this time. Okay?
Okay. Any other questions regarding this issue? Any other questions regarding this issue? Sorry. No? Okay. So we have another question, and this is about what, in your opinion, should be evidence for assessing the performance and efficacy of the management system?
I think we dealt with this one before, because this is where we were talking about efficiency versus effectiveness. Okay, I didn't answer the question of evidence. The evidence is the outputs from the management review, because the management review is where you determine whether the quality system is being effective in meeting your needs. So what is your strategic direction? What are your policies? What are your objectives? Is the quality system helping you achieve those objectives, helping you achieve your policies? If not, then you have a performance problem. Okay?
Okay. So that's, I guess, all the questions we have for the moment. Christy, Jorge, can you give her the microphone? Okay. Thank you, Jose María.
Sí.
Okay.
Ahorita que mencionó la eficacia del sistema a partir de los resultados de la revisión por la dirección, la norma habla de determinar la conveniencia, adecuación y eficacia del sistema. En mi experiencia, incluso, bueno, como auditada, había auditores que nos pedían específicamente cómo determinamos conveniencia, adecuación, eficacia, cada uno de manera independiente. No es algo que se evalúa en conjunto como el resultado, porque de hecho la diferencia entre conveniente y adecuado, las normas ISO no definen conveniente y adecuado, definen eficacia, pero conveniencia y adecuación, y si nos vamos a los diccionarios, son sinónimos, ¿no? Conveniente es que es adecuado, adecuado es que es conveniente. Y realmente yo, en la experiencia como auditada, tuve muchas veces problema con los auditores porque pedían específicamente evidencias de cómo evaluábamos conveniencia, adecuación y la eficacia, que me queda claro. Pero ¿cuál es el punto de vista de Charles, por favor?
Okay, so she said that in the past she had some problems because the standard requires the convenience, adequacy, and efficiency of the management system, and that auditors in the past, external auditors or certification body auditors, has request her how they are assessing or not determine each of them. And that in her point of view, the three issues are related. So which is your opinion on that?
Adequacy and effectiveness are directly related, because if you're not being effective, then you're not adequate. And the efficiency is about how adequacy and effectiveness about achieving the correct objective. Efficiency is how well you do that. And so in terms of performance, I as a manager would be very worried about the efficiency. That would probably be what I would focus on most, because once you set up your system and your processes initially, you think they are reasonably well designed, and after a small period of time you will know that they are effective and therefore the system is working adequately. And then you start focusing on how do I improve it to work more efficiently. So as a manager, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to be looking at. And efficiency is usually measured in terms of time and cost and material usage. Convenience, that depends on the situation. I wouldn't say it's convenient to have to do something in this way if there is a more convenient way of doing it. I think that might be a translation problem for us. What do you understand by convenience?
Okay, let me try to check in the standard. Do you have it?
No.
Which is exactly the word? How is the wording in English?
Well, I think that we need to explain how the English language understand these three requirements, because some auditors from certification bodies, they want to measure each one, and obviously if we have some lost in translation, I prefer the point of view from the English language about these terms in order to understand the subject. In this case, for instance, do you remember the accountability term a few years ago? In Spanish, the translation is
It's very difficult. Yeah.
But when someone from the UK explained to me what's the meaning of this term, say, no, it's a different term and the concept is different.
Yep.
And we'd like to know, in English in this case, what's the meaning of these terms in order to understand that in Spanish.
Okay, I mean, in fact, in 931, in English, I have the word suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. So suitable is, does it work for you? People can develop very complex systems that are over difficult to use. They're too difficult for some people to use. So, you know, if you need a degree in order to fill in the paperwork to answer the questions on your quality system documentation, then it's really not suitable for a production line operator. So there is a relationship between what you are providing and what is the ability of someone to use it. So that in one way is describing suitability. Adequacy, is it fulfilling the task properly? Is something working for you? And then effectiveness is the result that you determined being achieved. I think is how these three terms are being used in English. It's not easy even in English to give you simple answers on this one. Yeah.
As you said, in this case, the two first terms must be qualitative,
Yes.
and the third one would
Is
be
definitive.
quantitative.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. You can measure the effectiveness, but measuring suitability and adequacy, no, that's not so easy. Yeah.
Okay, well, the last question says, I had an experience in an audit where the auditee has more than 10 national standards regarding legal requirements as part of their management system. They justify their application partially, and they ask or is asking if they as an auditors can suggest to be more selective in the applicability of these national standards, particularly those on legal requirements. And if a non-conformity can be recorded if they don't know these standards.
So you're saying there is a process which is governed by legal requirements or supported by standards, and the organization doesn't have the knowledge of those standards?
Yes, but one part of the question is that, and the other is that they know the standards, but they just justify partially the use in the management system.
If their justification is sufficient, that they are still ensuring the quality of the product or the service, then I don't think the auditor can give them a non-conformity for that. The auditor can write an observation to note that in their opinion it does not fulfill the legal requirement. But I made the comment a couple of days ago that ISO 17021 Part 1 has, I think, in clause 931 a note saying that a management system assessment is not a legal compliance assessment. I'm not quite sure it's 931. But there is a statement in 17021 that says a management system assessment is not a legal compliance assessment, and therefore a certification, an external certification body or an auditor should not be recording that. On the other hand, if this is an internal audit question, then this is something that you perhaps can decide on an internal basis should be a non-conformity.
Okay.
But a third-party certification body should not be recording that as a non-conformity.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if, Jose Maria, do you have more questions? Luz? Okay, we are going to check if there are some questions remotely, I think. Okay, so there is one in YouTube. It says, regarding communication, the standard asks what, how, when, and who is going to conduct the communication, but sometimes it is implicit, this communication is implicit in the procedures without to be written as the standard is required. So it is okay that it is implicit, or the person, okay, it is okay, it is implicit if the persons understand how the communication is handled, or it is necessary to have evidence of each of the questions the standard states.
Communications is, well, let's look at the clause 7.4. The organization shall determine the communications, including on what, when, with whom, how, and who communicates. It doesn't say that this has to be documented in a process or that documented information has to be kept on it. We all understand that communication is critical to quality. In fact, one of the reasons for adopting a process approach quite early on was that we know that many quality failures occur when one activity is completed and you move to the next activity. It's the interactions between these activities where communication failures occur. I'm very horrified by the information I received recently that in hospitals, so many wrong limbs, arms or hands, were being cut off because the doctors hadn't adequately communicated to the surgeons. So someone would go in with a problem with their right hand and find they were missing their left hand afterwards. In fact, the problem became so bad that the World Health Organization proposed a checklist system for surgeons to go through before they do operations. Apparently this has reduced the problem significantly. They measure the reduction as being 70%. But that still means there are 30% of these wrong operations taking place because of poor communication. That worries me. I don't like hospitals, please. I hope there are no doctors here. So the whole basis of communication is, it's everything with quality, because you start with what is the vision of the top managers. If they can't communicate that to staff, how can they motivate people to work towards that vision? How can you persuade people to do the right thing if you haven't told them what it is you want them to do? All the issues about setting policies and objectives, that's about communicating in a structured way to people to make sure that the right thing that you want them to do is achieved. So communication is vital within quality, but the standard does not require documented processes or documented information. So yes, in answer to the direct question, it can be embedded and implicit within a process.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess this is the last question. Do you have more questions, Jose Maria? No? Okay. So Susana would like to make one, and Luz another.
¿Considera que si en una auditoría interna no se detectaron no conformidades y cuando viene la auditoría del organismo de certificación o de acreditación se encuentran, quiere decir que la auditoría interna no fue efectiva?
So she is asking your point of view. If you consider that if an internal audit didn't, find or detect anything, that they don't have non-conformities,
Yeah.
non-findings, but the external audit does, is because the internal audit was wrong conducted.
Okay. That may be true. I can't give an answer to that. There is actually a paper from the Auditing Practices Group about the effective use of ISO 19011 for audits. And the question really there was, how do you make sure that your internal audit process is effective? One of the things you do is you get people to review your internal audit reports, and if nothing is reported, they go, are you sure? What did you check? Have a review process, because it's not only embarrassing if the external auditor finds something that you didn't, but it really does show that your process isn't working very well. But there is a different issue with internal audits. External audits are compliance audits. So they're there to check, are you meeting the requirements of the standard? Internal audits are about how can we use a system of checking to help our business? So we talk about value-adding audits. So what are the additional things beyond just compliance that you really should be looking for when you do an internal audit? Some companies use the internal audit process as a key tool for their improvement processes. The auditors are trained to go into a process, look at it, say, is it effective? How can we make it more efficient? What improvements can we make? But that is going beyond the requirement of the standard, but that is the criteria that you establish for your internal auditing function. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I would like to add, because this is an interesting issue, that first of all, we, as you know, as the office who is in charge of the internal audit program at UNAM, we check actually that. And of course, if we had an audit report with not findings, of course we are suspicious. And because that means that the quality management is almost perfect. And these things are not so common. So usually we check it with the auditors and the auditee if this is the case. We haven't actually had the case, but we had some, or we had in the past some audit reports with few findings. And what usually happens is that, or when this happens, is because our management system has become very mature, and that people has understood how actually handle of the requirements of the standard. And that's common, but that gets in our experience another or arise another problem. The organizations or the entities who do not have so many findings, suddenly when there is a migration or a problem and they have more findings, they start to argue with a lot with the audit team because they don't want more findings. So we are still in a culture that if we have some findings, that is perceived, especially by top management, as a bad qualification. And exactly, and that's not necessarily the case, as we know. So we have been very strong in that position at UNAM, that internal audits should be an exercise of learning for both sides, and that it is good that some issues arise because give us the opportunity to improve it, so improve the management system. So, and I would continue to state that sometimes, yes, you have few audit findings because the quality management is mature enough, and sometimes you have more, and that's it is because something happened or because the management system is not mature. It's just in a phase of a stage of implementation. So, and we have to be conscious of that. Okay, so I would like to add that. So
Okay.
I don't know if Luz had another question.
En la parte de seguimiento y medición, se han encontrado bastantes diferentes puntos de vista, ¿no? Hay quien considera que una encuesta de satisfacción no es un recurso de seguimiento. ¿Esto es correcto?
Okay.
Okay, so she said that in the past, in the close of measurement, follow-up and measurement,
Yep.
Some issues have arisen regarding with the methods about how to measure.
Okay.
And she is stating that, for example, a current issue is about surveys, satisfaction surveys. And can we consider satisfaction survey a method for measurement, a process?
Yes.
For a service?
Yes, definitely. Surveys can be a process and a measurement tool at the same time. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. ¿Hay alguna otra pregunta? ¿No? Al fondo, con Patti.
Bueno, como auditor, en esta nueva norma me he encontrado con que se han hecho los análisis de riesgo en cada proceso y de esto se han generado acciones. Sin embargo, cuando se solicita la evidencia de estas acciones, los auditores mencionan que solamente se tienen contempladas estas acciones y no dan evidencia de las mismas. ¿Cuál sería la manera correcta de generar estas acciones y si realmente se tiene, o sea, se deben de tener evidencias en cuanto a este análisis de riesgos?
Okay, she says that as an auditor, when they are auditing the risk analysis or risk, in some cases the entities are or says that they don't actually have right now evidence of the actions of the risk because they just implemented this thing. So la pregunta fue, perdón, Patti.
¿Es factible que solamente las tengan contempladas o que realmente se requiera una evidencia de estas acciones?
So she asking if it's correct that they have only stated these actions without providing any evidence of it, if they need to provide evidence about the actions they are taking.
The clause 612, which is what I think you're referring to, says the organization shall plan actions to address risks and opportunities, and B, how to integrate and implement the actions into its quality system processes, and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken. So if they are not providing evidence of the effectiveness of the actions taken, then they are not passing the criteria. Okay?
But I would like to clarify something.
Sure.
So if we just migrate the version of or the management system
Yeah.
to the new version, so and the management system just made the risk analysis.
Mhm.
It is possible that they don't have the assessment yet.
With any migration from one system to a new one, the auditor would have to note, again, it depends on your internal audit policy. Either the auditor goes, this is a non-conformity because the standard requires it and you can't demonstrate it, or you put an audit observation that this process is still in migration and needs to be completed in the future. What you might also want beyond that is, because it currently does not conform, what is the planned action and the time for that action to make it conform? So you are agreeing with the department you're auditing a corrective action, effectively. How long is it going to take them before they do have sufficient evidence? Because it's important you record this in your audit report so that the next time that they are doing an internal audit on that department, this issue is examined
Exactly.
and reassessed, okay? So I can't say, depending on your internal audit policies for how you treat migration, do you issue a non-conformity or do you just issue an observation? But something has to be recorded in the internal audit report on this. Okay?
Yes, I think it's actually your question, but it's very important because has arisen a couple of times, and actually the problem is that this is a new requirement for this new version. So our laboratories were not used to that, so they need to implement it. And what we have found almost in all the cases is that when we are conducting the internal audit, they have stated some actions and so about this risk analysis they conduct. And some of them, they have just they can provide you evidence of the actions that they have taken, but others hasn't been present. No, so they have been done. So that's why they don't have evidence. And as Charles said, what you have to do as an auditor is to record that in the report, saying, look, there is not enough, or we cannot audit the monitoring or the actions taken with those risks because the management system just migrate. In that way, the next audit team will be able to check it the next time, and in the next time they will need to provide that evidence because they will not have the excuse that the management system just is or that this requirement in the management system is completely new. Okay, so Christy.
Before we talk to Christy, one critical issue about this is if you are subject to external audit, if you have a finding that says we haven't made the migration, that needs to be reported quite urgently because you may have to delay the external audit on this issue. Okay, sorry.
Me parece que también como auditor deberíamos de ver el tipo de riesgo del que se está hablando, porque las acciones que puedo tener son eliminar cuando es posible, o reducir o prevenir el riesgo. Pero cuando estoy hablando de mitigar el riesgo, si es un riesgo que yo preveo pero que no se ha presentado, pues no puedo tener evidencia de la acción realizada porque el riesgo no se ha presentado.
Okay.
¿No? Bueno.
So she said that also as an auditor you have to check particularly the risk you are talking about.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can eliminate the risk, sometimes you can reduce it or mitigate it, but sometimes actually the risk needs to present in order you have to take some
En
action.
caso de mitigar.
Yep. Okay.
So yes, that's another answer to Patty's questions. Yes. Okay. So any more questions regarding this issue? Okay. Apparently not. So. So they are asking which are the criteria to audit the infrastructure, because it is influenced by health and safety, according to your lecture yesterday.
It can be, yes. So we say in the standard the organization shall determine, provide and maintain the infrastructure necessary for the operation of the processes, etc. For the organization, you look at their process map and you go, you have defined these processes and you have defined the buildings, equipment, communication systems needed for those processes. I think this clause is historic. It's really about are those systems adequate? I have to use this word adequate here. So are they meeting the need for that process, or have they deteriorated? Do they need improving? But again, it's very difficult as an auditor, because if the output of that process is still satisfactory, it's very difficult to say to the client, your infrastructure is not adequate. But if you start getting non-conformities with the outputs, then you might say, what is the cause of that non-conformity? And it might well be the infrastructure. It's a very difficult question to answer, that one. Okay.
Okay. I think we have another question from Patty.
Sí, y bueno, como auditado, como auditor también, en algunas ocasiones nos encontramos con acciones no efectivas porque se repiten y se repiten y se repiten. Sin embargo, estas acciones, por ejemplo, que se refieren a recursos, no se van a poder cerrar en mucho tiempo. Es conveniente que el auditado las cierre si pasa muchísimo tiempo para estas acciones, o que se queden ahí continuando en espera.
Okay, so she says that sometimes as an auditor she has seen some corrective actions that are presenting again and again and again, especially related with resources. No?
Yep.
And I think it's because we are a public institution, and sometimes you don't have money. So,
Yep.
And so she is asking which is what the auditee should do, just to eliminate this, or
You issue a major non-conformity. If you are seeing a repeated pattern of a non-conformity occurring, and this could be due to resources or any reason, and when a non-conformity occurs, the organization has to plan a corrective action, and if it doesn't succeed with the corrective action, and at the next audit the non-conformity is still occurring, and the next audit it's still occurring, then you issue a major non-conformity in your audit report, because that is the only thing that will persuade the managers of that operation to take action to do something. That is the influence you as an auditor have.
Okay. Well, thank you. The last question is, in the case of electronic systems that use electronic tools to manage projects like Microsoft Project, how the evidence have to be, show. Is it valid to show just the history, I think, about the changes probably of the project? If there are changes, it is sufficient just to document or state in improvement actions, and improvement actions that are evidence of the history in the software. Should I print or keep images of the history?
If you're changing software, then you're actually performing a design and implementation function. So yes, there should be a record of why the change was needed, how it was implemented, and then an assessment of whether it was effective. How you do that, I leave to you, because this is a risk issue. If it's a critical piece of software, I would want an awful lot of documentation to be available. If it's something simple, then a piece of paper that's adequately filed would be sufficient. But yeah, software, you are changing a process, you're changing a design characteristic. So I would expect to see some good, clear evidence as to why you're doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think that was the last question. So thank you very much, Charles, again for your disposition to come
Thank
to
you.
UNAM and to, be happy to have these answers, question-answer session. We really liked it, and it was very, I think, interesting and useful for everybody. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much also to all the Physics Institute, the staff, for all the support and also the help for having this session. So thank you very much to all of them. Also, I would like to thank to Luz, Jose Maria, and Jorge for all the help in, handle the questions. So thank you very much, guys. And finally, we will keep as a statement of our recognition to Charles a certificate for helping us today
Thank
with
you
this
very much.
session. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Algunos de ustedes nos pidieron tener una foto fuera de todos para con el membrete del Instituto de Física. Es algo que vamos a hacer ahorita, entonces pues les pido que no se vayan, acompáñenos afuera para tomar la foto. Extendemos la invitación, por supuesto, a la gente del Instituto de Física si nos quiere acompañar también afuera para tomarnos la foto y así tener evidencia objetiva del evento. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes por su participación y esperamos verlos pronto en los otros eventos que tenemos programados en la coordinación. Muchas gracias a todos.